Hello everyone. Today we will explain a romance drama film, The Handmaiden. Spoiler alert, sit tight and enjoy the movie recap. Now let's start our daily recap dose. This is part 2 of the movie if you want to see part 1. Link in the description. Now movies part 2 starts with a scene where we know more about Lady Hideko's past. She has to eat metal balls, which look like Benoit balls, when she's a little girl because her handmaid hits her repeatedly when she talks back. She is then taken into her room, where she is informed that an ogre lives outside of her room and will smother her if she ever cries. The Annie additionally shares the photograph of Hideko's mom that we had seen her show to Suki. Hideko's aunt teaches her Japanese by reading her graphic novels and teaching her the words penis and vagina. Before letting go, her uncle approaches and grabs both of their faces, suffocating them. Now that she can speak Korean, we see the young Hideko slap a servant for being mean to her. She hears from her uncle that her mother gave her a touch of madness, and he promises to try to teach her so that she doesn't end up in a mental institution. She is taught to read from his book collection, which now reveals to be very explicitly sexual books, as part of the training. The youthful Hideko peruses from a realistic story and her uncle hollers at her absence of verbalization. The adult Lady Hideko is then seen reading from passages that are sexually explicit at the readings for collectors. She streaks back to the day of Harani's hanging and the workers gazing up at her. In the meantime, the Japanese book collectors continue to read, and the stories become increasingly graphic. She also chokes herself while demonstrating the material to the audience. She is beat up. She is carried up to the ceiling on a wooden puppet. The books are sold at an auction. Because the sexually explicit illustration has been removed, one has lost value. Because the illustration was necessary to convey what words alone could not, nobody wants to buy the book. These readings are carried out by a hired forger who impersonates Count Fujiwara. He informs Hideko's uncle that all but one of the women on the estate are drawn to him. He heard that her uncle is locked into her and recommends to him to ease off of her preparation or shall be dead inside. Lady Hideko and Count Fujiwara talk over dinner. He tries to convince her that he loves her, but she realizes that he is lying. He acknowledges that he is the son of a Korean farmhand, and he spent 3 years learning to paint forgeries in order to gain access to her and claim her father's inheritance. But after meeting her, he realized how smart she was, so he made a new deal. If he suggested that he save her from her uncle, they would split the money. She declares that she does not wish to marry anyone. He knows that she plans to kill herself, but he says that all of her money would go to a wicked uncle. She says that if they eloped, he will find them and take her to the basement where he tortures people. He has taken her there as a child and shown her what he did to her aunt there. She receives highly concentrated opium from Count Fujiwara, who promises that if she is ever caught, 3 drops will put her to sleep, 5 will knock her out, and all of them will kill her. They intend to send a servant to a mental institution in Hideko's name for her. After she is discovered to be having sex with the Count, they get rid of her previous one. We currently see Suki's appearance according to Hideko's point of view. She hits the wall when Suki tries to peek into her room, scaring her. She assists Suki as she gets ready for bed. Then, at that point, she shouts to get Suki to come, guaranteeing she had a bad dream. Hideko reads a letter from Count Fujiwara to her in which he tells her to always show Suki her clothes because that is part of the reward she will receive for helping him if she wasn't being duped. He emphasizes that because she is illiterate, she will not be able to read the letter she is reading. She knew she couldn't read the recommendation, so she asked Suki to read it aloud. Hideko additionally heads outside and chastens her workers for taking Suki's shoe, saying assuming that she takes off, she'll toss them out. After seeing Suki bait Hideko and fix her tooth in the subsequent flashback, We now see that Hideko invited Suki to join her in the tub. Count Fujiwara sent her a letter warning her that Suki would pretend that the earrings are fake because she wants them, even though they are actually Hideko's own earrings, when she gives them to Hideko. He tells her that they should assign Suki the task of trying to persuade Hideko to marry him and that she shouldn't fall in love with him too quickly in order to avoid her becoming suspicious. As in the past, Hideko compliments Suki when she is dressed up and gives her the earrings. Similar to before, Hideko feels a sense of companionship towards Suki when she talks about her mother's death during childbirth. Hideko and Count Fujiwara really don't like each other and only allow each other to follow their plan. Now, Suki sits around, irritated, and watches Hideko and the Count have a flirtatious conversation. They are now openly talking about how much they dislike each other. Hideko observes Suki's jealousy. Suki rushes back to find a dressed Hideko mounting Count Fujiwara on the grounds, just like when she was away running errands. Now we can see that they staged that pose to imply to her that they were in love. We see Hideko lecturing the Japanese men about sexual literature. She examines Benoit balls and books. The men cheer. The scene with Hideko and Suki having sex again is shown next, this time with the intention of teaching Hideko how to please a man. However, the lesbian sex scene is now longer and more graphic, with both women verbally pleading with each other cunnilingus and grinding and fingering each other. Hideko is told by Suki that she is good at having sex. Count Fujiwara yells at Lady Hideko a day or two later, warning her that if she scares Suki, she will close up like a clam. The lady regrets arranging to have Suki imprisoned in a psychiatric facility, but he informs her that Suki claimed Lady Hideko was so dense that even if someone pulled on her nipples, she wouldn't know someone wanted sex. Although it is true that Suki made this statement at a very early stage, she did so at a time when she was not completely invested in Lady Hideko's companionship and was working hard to follow the plan despite her growing attachment. However, Lady Hideko, who is now convinced that Suki does not really have feelings for her, is sufficiently offended by it. Hideko asks Suki in her room whether she still believes she should marry the Count, even if the lady has feelings for someone else. Hideko slaps Suki after she says yes and pushes her out of her room. After that, she goes to hang herself from the same tree that her aunt had, declaring that she wishes she hadn't been born, and she grabs the rope that Suki found earlier in the hat box. We're supposed to believe that this is why, despite falling in love with Suki, she allows her to be sent to a mental institution. But when Hideko is hanging from the tree, Suki appears and grabs her by the legs before she can fall. She immediately admits to everything, including that they were going to send her to the insane asylum and that she was trying to trick her into marrying the Count. Hideko asks, "Suki, would you say you are stressed over me?" And since she has pretended to be a handmaiden by the name of Tamako, Suki wonders how she knows her name. Hideko admits her arrangement to send Suki to the crazy house. Now, Suki sends a letter home to the woman who taught her to steal, informing her of a change in plans and their need for her assistance with a forgery. Hideko's uncle goes to his gold mines by car. He tells Lady Hideko about the basement, saying that if she ever betrays him, he will torture her like he has tortured other members of his family in the past. Suki can finally explore the library now that he is gone. She discovers that all of the literature in the uncle's collection is perversely sexual. She tears pages and illustrations out of all the books and dumps them in the indoor ponds beneath the floorboards, upset that Hideko had to read them. We see the two women laughing as they run through the fields now that they are finally free to prepare for Hideko's elopement. Cut to Suki being thrown into the insane asylum. Hideko doesn't seem to be affected and says she's hungry instead of being sad. Because their plan worked, Hideko and Count Fujiwara dine in a nice restaurant. At the mental hospital, Suki is eating dinner while hysterically laughing. Count Fujiwara explains at a photography studio that they will replace Suki's photo on her ID with Hideko's so that she can assume her identity and Hideko can be placed in a mental institution, allowing them to recoup her inheritance without being discovered by her uncle. Since she has taken Suki's identity, the Count admits that he might actually like Hideko and suggests that they get married once more. She asks him if he regrets locking Suki up alone in a madhouse, but he responds that she is naive and deserves her fate. Suki is able to get away from the madhouse after a fire is starting. Hideko takes the opium the Count gave her back to a hotel and puts it in a wine glass. He decides to have sex after they kiss. She drinks from her wine glass, trusting damnation follow after accordingly, yet he doesn't. He kisses her breasts after she lets him, but he doesn't drink the wine. At last she drinks from his glass and kisses him, moving wine from her mouth to his. He then gets really sexually aggressive with her, pointing to the books she read aloud that say women like being taken hard. However, the opium in the wine causes him to pass out before he can hurt her. He wakes up to find that two criminals have taken him into town. Hideko and Suki are now back together. Suki has snapped a photo of herself dressed as a man and uses her fraud abilities to supplant the photograph in Count Fujiwara's ID, assuming control over his character. Hideko informs her uncle in a letter that the Japanese count he had been trying to impress for years is actually the son of a Korean farmhand, and she presents him to him. She also tells him to tell the Count that no woman likes to be taken by force outside of books. The man who pretended to be Count Fujiwara is taken to the uncle's basement by the uncle, who tortures him by cutting off his fingers with a paper trimmer now that he knows he has been betrayed. The Count requests a cigarette. The two women make their way to the train station. The gang of the uncle is there looking for any women trying to leave town who are traveling together. There are two ways the women go unnoticed. They purchase a ticket to a nearby city, then pay the difference to change it to Shanghai. Additionally, they are not perceived as two women because Hideko is currently masked as a man. We discover in a subsequent flashback that the Count did not actually claim Hideko's virginity. With a butter knife, she cut her own hymen, resulting in the blood Suki observed the following morning. Today, Hideko's uncle inquires about every detail of his niece's wedding, revealing that he had a sinister attraction to his niece and wasn't just after her money. He poses realistic inquiries about whether he contacted her bosoms or her vagina, whether or not her vagina was wrinkled, and how her secretions appeared. He admits that he is just an elderly man who enjoys dark tales. Hideko's uncle grabs a cigarette from the Count and smokes it while the Count ignores him and asks for one to help him remember. Both women have reached the ferry. Hideko disposes of her phony mustache now that they are securely in transit to Shanghai. While the Count lies bleeding from finger loss, Hideko's uncle removes his underwear. The Count claims that the cigarettes contain mercury, which has poisoned them both, and that the torture cannot continue. Uncle dies, and Count attempts suicide by inhaling the air. In the final scene, Suki and Hideko are traveling to their new home in their ship's stateroom. They undress, kiss, and have a long sexual experience. Now that they are free, they have more lesbian sex. But this time they are clearly in love and affection. After inserting the Benoit balls into their mouths, they then do the same for each other. The steamer ship is seen sailing off into the night in the final shot. The end. Thanks for watching our daily recap dose. To help us grow, like, share, and subscribe, and press the bell icon to never miss the upcoming recaps. And share your reviews on the movie and comment below.